Weston and I were that couple. You know, the one high school sweethearts? Inseparable. The kind of love story everyone said would last forever. We grew up together, not just in age, but as people. Our families were intertwined, our futures planned out on a shared blueprint. He was my rock, my best friend, my everything. For 12 years, from awkward teenage dates to building our first home together, I never once doubted his love. He would look at me with this light in his eyes, a look that said I was his entire world. That's what made the betrayal cut so deep. It all started subtly. The late nights at the office became more frequent. The business trips extended by a day or two. When I'd ask, he'd sigh, talking about a demanding new project, the pressure from his boss. I believed him, of course. Why wouldn't I? This was Weston. I'd make him a late dinner, rub his shoulders, and tell him how proud I was of his hard work. I was his biggest supporter, his cheerleader, completely oblivious to the fact that my support was just enabling his lies. The signs were there. I see them now with perfect, painful clarity. The way he'd angle his phone away from me, the sudden password on his laptop that was never there before. He'd say it was for work security, and I'd just nod. Trust is a fragile thing, and mine was absolute. The illusion shattered on a Tuesday. I'd planned a surprise for him. He'd been so stressed and I wanted to do something special. I booked a weekend getaway to the little cabin where he first told me he loved me. I was so excited I couldn't wait until he got home. I decided to pop by his office to surprise him with the confirmation tickets. I remember walking down the hallway of his firm, my heart fluttering with anticipation. His office door was slightly ajar. I heard laughter. Not just any laughter. It was a woman's laugh, light and intimate. Then I heard Weston's voice, low and tender, the same voice he used with me. My hand froze on the doorknob. I peeked through the crack, and there he was, my Weston. He was leaning against his desk, and a woman I'd never seen before was standing between his legs, her hands on his chest. He was smiling at her, that same smile, that same light in his eyes, and then he leaned in and kissed her. What in a quick, meaningless peck. It was slow, deep, and full of a familiarity that made my stomach turn. I felt the air leave my lungs. The world tilted on its axis. I backed away from the door, my hand over my mouth to stifle a sob. The surprise tickets felt like lead in my pocket. Stumbled back to my car, my mind a complete blank. The 12 years we built, the future we planned, it all just turned to dust in that single soul-crushing moment. Driving home was a blur. I sat on our couch, in the house we'd built together, and waited. When he walked in that evening, humming a cheerful tune, he looked at me, and his smile faltered. "Daisy, you okay? You look pale." I just looked at him, searching for any sign of guilt, any flicker of the man I thought I knew. There was nothing. He started telling me about his hard day, the same old story. That's when my shock turned into a cold, hard rage. I let him finish. Then I calmly asked, "How was your hard day, Weston? Was it as hard as watching the man I loved for 12 years kiss another woman in his office?" The color drained from his face. He started to stammer, the usual pathetic denials. "What are you talking about? You must be mistaken." But my gaze didn't waver. "Don't lie to me, Weston. I saw you." The fight that followed was ugly. The truth finally came out, not in a torrent, but in reluctant, selfish drops. Her name was Chloe. She was a new hire. It had been going on for 6 months. 6 months of lies, of shared moments that were stolen from me. He swore it meant nothing, that he loved me, that it was a mistake. But how can 6 months of calculated deceit be a mistake? It wasn't a slip-up. It was a choice he made every single day. I told him to get out. That night, the man I was supposed to marry packed a bag and left the home we built. The silence he left behind was deafening. The next few weeks were a living nightmare. I was a ghost in my own home, surrounded by memories that now felt tainted. Every photo, every gift, every corner of the house held a story, and now they were all chapters in a book of lies. My friends and family rallied around me, but I felt numb. Then the numbness started to fade, replaced by a burning desire for something other than despair. I wasn't going to let him destroy me. He took my past. He wasn't going to take my future, too. I realized that the best revenge wasn't screaming or crying. It was living well. It was showing him, and more importantly, showing myself, that my happiness was never truly dependent on him. So, I started with the house. Our house. I packed up every single thing that reminded me of him. His clothes, his books, the stupid expensive watch I bought him for his 30th birthday. I didn't just want him out of my house. I wanted his ghost gone too. My friends came over for what we called a purging party. We blasted music. We laughed, we cried a little, and we boxed up 12 years of a life that was no longer mine. It was incredibly cathartic. We donated most of it to charity. The idea of his designer shirts keeping someone in need warm gave me a strange sense of satisfaction. It was like turning something ugly into something good. While cleaning, I found a box of his old work documents he'd forgotten. Inside were files for a major project he was leading, the one he used as an excuse for all his late nights. Tucked away was a presentation he was set to give to the company's biggest client. An idea sparked. It was petty, it was risky, but it felt right. He used his work to lie to me, so it seemed only fitting that his work should feel the consequences. I didn't steal anything or break any laws. I just made a single, anonymous phone call to the lead partner at his firm. I simply suggested they might want to double-check the financial projections for the upcoming client presentation. Mentioning a specific discrepancy I'd overheard Weston worrying about. It was a bluff, a shot in the dark, but it was enough to plant a seed of doubt. A week later, I heard through the grapevine that Weston's presentation had been a disaster. The partners, now paranoid because of the anonymous tip, had grilled him on every single number. He wasn't prepared for that level of scrutiny, and under pressure, his whole proposal began to unravel. He didn't lose his job, but he lost the client, his credibility, and the promotion he had been banking on. Chloe, the other woman, seeing his star fall, quickly distanced herself from him. Apparently, she wasn't as interested in a guy who was no longer the golden boy of the firm. It was a small, bitter victory, but it was mine. It wasn't about ruining his life, but about balancing the scales. He had broken my world without a second thought, and for the first time since it happened, I felt a sliver of power return. But the real revenge, the real healing, came from rebuilding my own life. I sold the house. It held too many ghosts. I used the money to take a trip I'd always dreamed of, a solo journey through Southeast Asia. I ate street food in Thailand, watched the sunrise over ancient temples in Cambodia, and met incredible people from all over the world. I learned to be alone, and not just to survive it, but to enjoy it. I discovered that my own company was pretty great. Started painting again, a passion I'd let slide while I was busy supporting Weston's dreams. I filled my new, smaller apartment with color and light and things that were just for me. My life became my own masterpiece, not a shared project. I found a strength in myself I never knew I had. Weston's betrayal was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but in a strange way, it was also the most liberating. He didn't end my story. He just forced me to write a much better one. Thanks for watching my story today. If you've ever been through something similar, know that you are not alone and your story isn't over. Out. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more content. See you next time.